All right, we're in Aeneid Book 1. The Trojans have just, not crashed, but landed on shore, and they're very happy. Virgil's going to tell us a little bit about what Aeneas does, and this is going to be another one where I don't go through and give you exactly what all the words are, but I'll kind of walk you through it. The first part's pretty easy. There's a few lines that are really pretty rough. So Aeneas scopulum anterea conscendit. We're back in the present tense. Aeneas is our subject, or scopulum is our object. Anterea is a good adverb to know, so if you can't think of that off the top of your head, maybe add it to the list of words you should study. So Aeneas conscendit the scopulum, et omnem prospectum late pelago petit. Omnem goes with prospectum. Prospectum is a fourth declension word. Late we've seen a few times as an adverb. It means far and wide. Pelago, the book tells you, the dative of direction. This isn't unusual use of the dative to show sort of where something is going, but you can kind of hear it in Latin. You say to the, like I'm going to go to the store. Usually in Latin, ablatives are direction to where something is. So the book gives you an alternative. It would be in pelagum, into the sea, sort of. And then petit, our understood subject, is still Aeneas. He's still doing these verbs. Omnem prospectum is our direct object. Anthea si quem iactatum vento videat, frigiasque biremis. Anthea, it's weird, it looks like it should be feminine nominative maybe, but it's really in a Greek sort of accusative. And it goes with quem, which is really that idea of like aliquem something. But after si, all the allies run away, so instead of si aliquem, we just have si quem. Iactatum is that fourth principal part. So it's tossed, and it is accusative, so it goes with anthea. Here's really antheus in Latin. Vento videat. Vento goes with that idea of iactatum. That's how he's tossed about. It's ablative. And videat is a subjunctive. It's a present subjunctive. That C kind of makes it subjunctive, but it's also subjunctive in a kind of indirect question kind of way, if something should happen. Our subject of videat still Aeneas. And the book gives you a good note about this quem. In Latin, we'll say if he can see any Antheus, but in English you might say anything of him. So he's looking for evidence of his friend. And frigiasque biremis. Phrygia is an area of Asia, sort of Turkey, where Troy is. So saying it's Phrygian biremes, which are a type of ship, it really means Trojan. So he's looking for his friend Antheus and the Trojan biremes. Bireme just means it has two rema, two oars. So it's like a boat and it has two layers of oars. Aut capin, aut celis in pupibus arma caeci. Capin is another Greek accusative. The book will help you out looking for those Greek forms. Capis is the nominative. In Greek, you kind of have this N ending for the accusative, which is similar to the M of the Latin Greek. So looking for those things, or capis, or here our arma is the accusative. I'm just trying to see the arma. Caeci is the genitive of Caecus, who is one of Aeneas' friends. The arma caeci, celis in pupibus. Remember, pupibus, those are the stern of the ship, the backside, the poop deck, and celis just describes the pupibus. And the book gives you a note that it's probably plural poetically, not literally. Right, so Caecus probably has one ship on which he's put his arma. So this, the book tells you, kind of means the shields on a ship. You might put them on the sides, and then reflect, and they'd be something easy to see from a distance. So Aeneas is looking for those as a sign of his comrades. Okay, poor Aeneas. Life is so hard. Navem inconspico nullam, tris literae cervus prospicit errantis. Alright, so navem inconspicto nullam. Nullam goes with navem. Navem's feminine, and the am of nullam is feminine, so they go together, they're same gender. And they're understood as an object of prospicit here, which are subject still Aeneas. And inconspictu, it's kind of the same word as prospectum. It's ablative of where, place where. So, no ships, but tris literae cervus. A cervus is a deer. It's a good word to know. And then tris cervus, literae is where they are, so ablative of place where. Errantis describes the cervus, and you might think that it doesn't because it doesn't look like it has an accusative ending. But we've seen how there's sometimes alternative forms of things, and is is sometimes an alternative form of ace. So here, that's probably what we're seeing, this is. And if you have this ace swapped out for an is, you would expect the is to be a long is. And if you scan it out, it'd be long, and the book says it's long. So that kind of helps you out to see if there's a long I. It's really ace, and ace and cervus are both accusative plural. So sometimes the is can throw you off. And the nt of errantis, of course, tells you that it's a present active participle. Remember that participles are adjectives, so they describe nouns, but they aren't verbs. So it can be confusing in English. If you say, he is running, that's a verb. But you say, the running boy trips, their running is actually an adjective. So you have to be careful on how you use those. Hos tota armenta secuuntur a tergo. Hos, and the book tells you this. I feel like I'm just reading the book to you. It describes the cervus. So when you say these, you're referring back to the deer, like these guys, these things that we've just been talking about. Tota armenta is your subject. And be careful with secuntur, which is deponent. It looks passive, but it's active. This and many of its compound forms we see a lot to follow something. So keep in mind that those are deponent. The secuntur and the gredior words, to go, those are the deponent words we see most often, and they have lots of compounds. So you have like egredior, ingredior, progredior, and they all mean to go out, to go in, to go forward. So keep your eyes out for those with their deponent. And then a tergo just kind of describes, like where they're going, or like from where. And there's a great word in English, it's tergiversation. It's like equivocation when you're trying to get out of something by saying something that's true but you don't mean it. So your parents would be like, oh, did you get a lot of sleep last night? You say, oh yeah, I slept 5 minutes, but I slept. That's called tergiversation. It's kind of turning things around on their back. Et longum per valis pascitur agmen. Agmen, I know you had in Latin 2 because we've been seeing it all the time in Latin 2 this year. Agmen's neuter, and all your words that end in men are neuter, like nomen, name, omen, which is omen, agmen, that's a suffix of neuter nouns. So an agmen's a column of people, and here it's a column of deer. And the longum is neuter that goes with agmen. Per valis is pretty self-explanatory. Again, the is plural, probably poetically. They're probably in one valley, not in many valleys. And pascitur is again deponent. Got lots of deponents in this part. We get the word pasta from this word. Pasta is just basic stuff you eat. Pastor is a shepherd, like the word pastor in English. A pastor is someone who takes people out to eat, right? Take out the sheep and lets them graze. So it's a shepherd. So pascitur is the verb, sort of to feed, like to eat. Constitit hic Arcumque manu calerisque sagittas. And there's no verb. The verb's the next line, but it's on the back side of this, so I can't show you. It's corrupit. Constituted he. We're still talking about Aeneas. He's the only thing that's our subject. Hic, like we said earlier, it's a long I. Long I's mean it's here. Short I, hic, means this. And again, I like make a little person. You can sit here. So constitute hic. I scanned the whole thing out just to make sure it was long, because I couldn't tell with the C and then the A. I looked in the book and I saw it was long, but you won't have long marks on the AP test, so I just scanned it out. Arcum is accusative, manu is ablative, and then caleris and sagittas are both accusative. Again, we have an is ending here that has been replaced for the s ending, the accusative plural. And all right, we scanned it out. That's a long I, so that helps me out. The is, this would be a long ace. So the accusatives are the things that he's taking up with his hands. And then corrupit. We're suddenly back in the perfect tense. The U there tells you that U's a vowel of perfectness. So this is where things kind of get tricky. One, he had a fidus quaetella gerebat Achates, and we've heard about Achates before. He's a Trojan. So the tella really belongs outside of this relative clause, and the fidus really belongs inside of this relative clause. The tella refer back to what we just had, the sagittas and the arcum. Tella is a neuter. Tellum is the singular. Tella is the plural. So you might say, like, weapons which fidus Achates gerebat. Or you could even, it sounds funny in English, you say, which weapons fidus Achates gerebat. But it sounds better in English to take the tella outside of our relative clause. All right, now things get crazy. All right, so there's Aeneas standing on a hilltop, looking down at the deer on the shore. And of course, like, they're just like grinding up some flour, which sounds terribly awesome. But what they would like is some deer meat. So he's going to try to kill these guys. Ductoresque ipsos primum. Primum's here adverbially, not the first something, but just like at first, or first. Doctoresque ipsos are the accusative, and they refer back to the deer, the stag. So they're like the leaders because they're out in front of everyone else. And then we get a little aside about the deer. Capita alta ferentis cornibus arboreis. Capita alta is plural because caput is neuter. So capita is the plural. Capita alta ferentis, your nt there tells you it's a present participle. And then cornibus arboreis go together. They're ablatives. Your ibus and is, they go together. And they're ablatives of quality. So it tells you some sort of quality about the deer. Arbor is a tree. Arboreus is the adjective tree-like, branching. And a cornu is a horn, but we know that deers don't have horns. They have antlers. So that would be a fine translation for that. It's a little bit different than a horn. And here you have sternet. So Aeneas is the one doing this. It's this idea, like, to lay someone low is to knock them down, to knock them dead. When I first saw it, I thought it was stare tit snores, and that wasn't right. Tomb, so first he does that. Tomb, next, we have our vulgus, our crowd, our common. So these are the deer that aren't out ahead, the regular herd. Vulgus is neuter, which is why it looks like it could be nominative, but it's actually accusative. So to be careful with that. Vulgus and vulgus, the book has a U and Latin Library had an O. It's fine either way. Those are two commonly accepted spellings. So he sternets the ductoris and then the vulgus. Et omnem miscet agens telis nemora inter frondea turbam. So omnem's our first word, and omnem knows with turbam, and you can tell they're accusative because of the M. And then miscet, the next word, is our verb, and our subject's still Aeneas. So he's mixing things up. So he mixes up the accusative. Agens, the NS is still present active participle. So this isn't another verb, we're describing him. It's sort of like in a positive. Like he's doing this stuff. Driving, telis is ablative. It's the same word we saw up here in line 188, tele gerebat akates. So this is our ablative plural form. So he's driving someone with weapons. So driving them with weapons. Nemora inter frondea. And nemora and frondea go together, and inter is really the preposition they go with, so they go with inter. Nemora is the plural of nemus, which we saw when he was describing like the beautiful scenic theater that they had stumbled into. And nemus is not just any kind of grove, it's a sacred grove, where you would see things like nymphs and gods and goddesses and stuff like that. Alright. Nec primus abstit, quam septem ingenia victor corpora fundat humi. We'll stop there. Nec by itself means and not. So he did these things and he did not something else. And he did not obstit. Prius quam is usually one word. He did not do this any sooner than he did something else. So sort of like until he did something else. What happens when you take a word that is usually one word, but easily broken up into two, like prius quam, and you break them up like that, it's called tmesis. Tmesis, tmesis. We do this in English, like when we say abso-freaking-lutely, or legend, wait for it, dairy. So you take a word that's usually one word and you kind of put something in between. So he didn't stop any sooner than he septem and gentia victor corpora. Septem and gentia and corpora go together, they're accusative. In victor, you need to treat as an appositive to the subject. So he didn't do something, or he did something as victor. And what he did was he fundated the septem and gentia corpora. Humi is actually locative. Not all words have forms in the locative case, only certain words do. Humi means ground, and we get like humble from it. If you're humble, you're low, like you're toward the ground. The rule about locatives is they show where something is, the location of it. Cities, towns, small islands, home, the country, and the ground all have locative cases. Not every word has a locative case. So Rome does because it's a city, like Sicily does because it's an island. The ground does, the word home and the word country, Rus, have locative forms. So it is a separate case, like it's in the nominative case, accusative case, whatever, but only certain words take the locative or have a locative form. So it says location, where something is. And the numerum cum navibus aequet, which is pretty. So there's 7 deer, 7 ships. Just an aside, when you have this diphthong ae in Latin, and if a word has a derivative in English, the a is always the thing that falls out. Right? We don't have a diphthong in English ae. So whenever it comes into English, so like the word pine means almost, and then we have the word peninsula, And the A is the thing that falls away. It goes away. So for I quit, we get the word equal, and the A has gone away. We only keep the E. Well, it's nice of Aeneas to get 7 deer for them. Hinc portum petit. Hinc means like from here, whatever. Next. Hinc portum petit. So portum is accusative, petit, we're still talking about Aeneas. Et socius partitur in omnes. Socius goes with omnes, and partitur is deponent. That means to portion out. He's portioning out the deer. And in means among here. So he's portioning it out among all his allies. Vina bonus quae deinde cadis onerarat acastes litore, etc., etc. Okay. So he's gone back to their little port that they have found. Vina is going to be our direct object, and we're going to have to wait for a long time to our verb. Delete it down in line 197. That's our verb here. That's what Aeneas does. Bonus quae deinde cadis onerarat acates. Bonus goes with acates. Quae refers back to the vina. That's our antecedent. Vina is the antecedent. Deinde is a nice connecting word. Then, next. Cadis is ablative. Place where. Onerarat, which is hard for me to say. It's actually that pluperfect form, oneraverat. And you have to be careful in the book. Here, let me show you. I know these get out of sync a little bit, so hopefully you can focus. When you have this words in parentheses there, they're showing you that something's fallen out. And so like in cadis you would expect to see, but here it's just cadis. So here I can see that it's really pluperfect. I was confused about why there were so many raws, and I had to look in the book, and it's really pluperfect. Bonus acates, your nominative. He oneraratad the vina in the cadis. Where? Litore trinacrio, which is the adjective Sicilian, sort of on the Sicilian shores. One shore. Or you can say trinacrian. Dead, derat. Again, we have a pluperfect erat on our perfect stem. Dead. And the subject of dederat is still acates. And heros is in a positive, or you can take it as a second subject. Sort of as a hero, he dederated. And then abeuntibus is dative. You always expect a dative with the word to give. You give something to someone. So abeuntibus has a lot of little parts to it. Ab, of course, means away. Euntibus is the present active participle form of eo, ire, to go. So when you make that into a, like going, you say eunti, and then the ibus is the dative plural. So you can kind of cut that apart into little parts. Ab, away, eu, go, enti, verbing, and then ibus is your dative. Divided. So finally get our verb for the vina. He divides or pairs off the wine. Et dictis marentia pectora mulcit. I think this is probably the third, maybe fourth time we've seen the word mulcit. Aeolus did it with the winds. When we had that extended simile, like the statesman calms the hearts of the people, we saw that word there too. So dictis is ablative. So with the dictis, excuse me, he mulcits the marentia, then int tells you it's present active participle. Pectora is again your chest. It's like you have pec muscles, they're your chest muscles. So now Aeneas is going to directly address his men. Anytime Aeneas actually speaks, it's an important part, because usually we talk about like what he's doing and not actually what he's saying. Oh, Soki. Soki is vocative. You're talking to someone, so you have to use a vocative case. It looks exactly the same as the nominative, but you know through context that it's really vocative. Neque enim ignari sumus ante malorum. Neque is another, it's and not. Enim means for. And ignari sumus is talking about the Trojans. Like, we weren't ignorant before. Malorum goes with the ignari. Like, we weren't unknowing of malorum. And it's a substantive. Don't say bad, you say bad things. O posse gravoria dabit deus his quoque finum. Posse is the perfect passive participle of patior, to suffer. Oh, having suffered, gravior, things. It's neuter plural, so you can say things after it. And remember that ior makes it comparative. So you're just saying, like, oh, you people who have suffered worse things. The deus is the nominative here. Dabit is future. Finem is our accusative. His, remember, whenever you have do dare, any form of giving, you expect a dative, and his here is your dative. Remember, dative plurals and ablative plurals are always the same. So if something looks like it's ablative plural, like his, it can also be dative plural. Dative's more unlikely. Okay, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through. He describes how they've gone through. Scylla is a whirlpool, and the Cyclopes, they live on Sicily. So he's going back and he's saying things that have happened to them. Like, don't worry, we've gone through worse things. There's some imperatives, right? He's telling them to do things. And then 203, the forson, etc. This is a really famous line, which will be a phrase of the week at some point. So make sure you prepare. Let's see, is that the end? Oh, I'll give you some more homework to do in class. Yeah, I know you love me. All right, so make sure if you have any questions, you let me know, or you can work it out together, and we'll continue to read some of the Aeneid.